All right, welcome into Starting Nine on 5RLive. This is Ethan Skolnick. This is my new show on 5RLive, which is our new project over at the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I've hosted a lot of radio shows. This is the first that I've done from my pseudo kitchen here in Fort Lauderdale. I'll be doing this every single Tuesday and Wednesday at 9 a.m. That's why we're calling it Starting Nine on 5RLive. And this will be all South Florida sports as soon as I figure out where the damn camera is on my computer. You guys know I'm not very good at this stuff. I will be doing this on all South Florida sports. So this is what will differentiate it from what I do on 5 on the Floor. We'll continue to host 5 on the Floor, our Miami Heat podcast with Greg Sylvander and Alex Toledo 3 or 4 nights a week. We'll continue to host Floor's Yours here on the 5 Reasons Sports YouTube channel and everything else that we do, Prize Picks on 5, 5 Reasons to Bet. We'll still do all of that, but this is going to be devoted to all South Florida sports and also to featuring some of our contributors on 5 Reasons. Today's guest is going to be Chris Kaufman. You can follow him at CK Parrott. Yes, Royal, thank you. I will not let Greg host. You can hear my voice is a little bit better. Greg can host tonight on 5 on the Floor. Royal, go away. But thank you for joining us. But anyway, we're going to have guests from the 5 Reasons Sports Network on here, but we'll also have some guests, friends of mine that I've made over the course of time in sports media from South Florida and around the country. And also we'll be getting player, coaches, and other executive guests as I go forward and decide to start texting and bothering people again. But we're going to cover everything here. It's going to be somewhat similar to a show that I was doing on Onside Radio, although I was doing that 2 hours a day. I'm lazy. I'm going to do 30 minutes twice a week, and we'll see where this goes. Also, continue to follow the Alex Dono Show. He's a harder worker than me, so Dono's going to be going every day, continuing to go every day, Monday through Friday at noon. That also features 5 Reasons guests, and he goes for a full hour as we build out this channel. Now, today's show is sponsored, and all of them are going to be sponsored by our friends over at Ubreak Wheel Fix. Ubreak Wheel Fix is a refinishing company. You can go there, get your wheels repaired as well. You know what the roads of South Florida are like. This is the place that you've got to go to get them fixed. They've got 20 years of experience. They're based in North Miami. They repair wheels from curb rash, bends, and cracks. They also specialize in refinishing from polishing, machining, and custom colors that will suit your car's needs. They do still have the Vice colors. So even though the Heat are going with those ridiculous uniforms, we think, those city uniforms, we hope that's not actually true. But you can still get the Vice colors over at Ubreak Wheel Fix. They offer an array of factory and custom wheel and tire applications. Contact them at ubreakwheelfix.com. That's ubreakwheelfix.com or 305-748-0112. Say hi to my friend Mark down there. Does a great job. Again, he's South Florida. He's a big Miami sports fan. All right. My producer is Manny Chang. I feel like he's producing everything here on the channel. We've got Manny early today. Let me get right to it. We're not going to talk Heat today. We're going to talk Heat tonight on 5 on the Floor. We're going to talk about Tua, and here's why. Okay. When I was on Onside, I talked a lot about Tua's last season and kind of where he was at and where the sports media was when it came to Tua. And there's no doubt in my mind at this point that there is an anti-Tua agenda. You are allowed to be skeptical about a quarterback when he comes into the NFL. We've seen plenty of quarterbacks drafted in the first round who don't pan out all over the NFL. You're allowed to be skeptical. But you have to be fair. And people are not being fair when it comes to Tua. They were not fair last season. It's like they ignored all of the circumstances, starting with coming off of a major, major hip surgery, something that no other quarterback has had to come back from. Then you go through the fact that he didn't have a full training camp because of COVID, didn't have preseason games because of COVID, has an offensive coordinator in Chan Gailey from the 1800s who didn't believe in him, had no weapons whatsoever during certain games of the season, didn't start with a lot and had less as the season went on. Preston Williams, with whom he developed some chemistry with, gets hurt. Devontae Parker, he could trust, but not really the type of receiver that's a perfect fit for him. Grant can't catch the ball. Albert Wilson opts out. Allen Hurns opts out. He had one tight end he could throw to consistently. He didn't have a proven back. He had 3 rookies on the offensive line. He went 6-3. Now, I'm not a huge believer in quarterback records, okay? There are plenty of quarterbacks that aren't that good that have won a lot of games because they've been carried by their defense. But the best that Tua could do last year under the circumstances, both personal and team-wise and coordinator-wise, was not F it up. That was the high bar for him. Just don't F it up. Don't lose the game. Everything's working against you. You're a rookie with no prep, coming off surgery, couldn't get yourself into the usual condition that you would have in an offseason, have no weapons, have a coordinator who doesn't believe in you, have a backup quarterback who still thinks he's a starting quarterback, even though everywhere he's been a starting quarterback, they've eventually made him a backup quarterback. And yes, my voice is kind of back. It's halfway there. I didn't go out last night. So basically, the best that you could have expected for him last year was don't F it up. And you know what? He really didn't. He went 6-3. Didn't play well against the Raiders, played extremely well against Arizona. Was a lot better than a lot of rookie quarterbacks have been, particularly in those circumstances. And on my show on Onside, I talked a lot about the Russell Wilson comparison. Go back and take a look at what Russell Wilson did in his first few games. The answer is nothing. They didn't ask him to do anything. He averaged 5 yards per attempt. Just don't F it up. So now he has a full offseason. He's able to get himself into condition. They add some weapons, although all of those weapons seem to be sidelined, but at least he has more to work with in terms of guys who've come back and they've played with him, whether it's the backs or Gesicki, etc., or Hollins. He performs extremely well in his first preseason game. He makes one bad decision. Ryan Fitzpatrick typically makes 3 of those per series. He makes one bad decision. It's a bad interception. Other than that, he's efficient. He gets the ball out quickly. Okay. Everybody focuses on the one pick. And then he plays brilliantly in this last game. And what do we get? My old friend, Ben Volin. And yes, he's a friend. I worked with Ben. Okay. I worked with Ben at the Palm Beach Post. I worked with everybody at the Palm Beach Post. Literally everybody you see on ESPN or NFL Network was at one point or another at the Palm Beach Post. Okay. Ben's at the Boston Globe. He's a national NFL writer. He's supposed to write about the entire NFL. He has an obsession with the Dolphins. I don't understand it. He was a very fair beat writer when he was here, but he has an obsession with Tua. New England is going into its season, okay, with a quarterback who doesn't want to get vaccinated so he can't get on a plane. Okay? Ben's writing about Tua. And here's what he writes today. And this is one of those articles where it's kind of like, yeah, I'm throwing it on him, but I'm not. Okay? So I'll read you the passage. I'm going to scroll down to this. 2021 is still probably a make or break year for Tagovailoa. Sorry, my voice doesn't help here. Even though he's only in his second season, his rookie year, despite a 6-3 record as a starter, did not go well. He admitted he didn't know the offense well enough. He couldn't push the ball downfield, and the Dolphins seemed to win in spite of him. Let's break that paragraph down, okay? 2021 is probably a make or break year for Tagovailoa. Why? I mean, let's go back to where this started. They drafted him 5th overall. They got rid of Fitzpatrick this offseason. Okay. They've added players that fits to his skill set, including a guy he played with in college who's a perfect fit for his skill set. Do you think the Dolphins are looking at this as a make or break year for Tagovailoa? Is it possible they would get him competition next year? Yes. You think they're looking at it as a make or break year for him? In other words, if he's not top 12 in the league, you think they're moving on? I don't. Let's go to the next sentence. His rookie year, despite a 6-3 record as a starter, did not go well. By whose calculation? The Dolphins were 5-11 the previous year. 5-11. Okay? And that was better than they should have been.
because Flores coached him to it. How can you say, despite a 6-3 record as a starter, did not go well? I mean, the whole sentence is an oxymoron. Again, they were 6-3 with him as a starter. Going well was 9-0. He admitted he didn't know the offense well enough. Yes, he did admit that. You know why he did that? It's pretty apparent. He didn't want to throw his offensive coordinator, even his past offensive coordinator, under the bus. If you rewatch that interview, you'll see it, okay? He's an honest person, but he always tries to take the high road. That's been apparent with him since Alabama. He couldn't push the ball downfield. The stats say something different. The stats say he tried to push the ball downfield more than Fitzpatrick did. We're going to have CK Parrott on to talk about that. And again, who is he pushing the ball downfield to? Mac Hollins? Do you even remember some of the receivers that were playing in that last game against New England? Buffalo? And the Dolphins seemed to win in spite of him. Now, this is just poor sentence construction, okay, I think. Because he didn't admit the Dolphins seemed to win in spite of him. That's Ben's opinion. But I'm just wondering how many Dolphin games Ben watched. I mean, the Patriots played at the same time as the Dolphins most of the time, right? A lot of 1:00 games on Sunday. I mean, the Patriots had a few more, I guess, national TV games. So the whole paragraph is basically just, I don't know, in Ben's head. Okay, let's go to the next part of this. Tagovailoa ranked 30th among quarterbacks in yards per attempt. Okay, again, they wouldn't allow him to throw downfield. He had no one to throw to. He completed only 6 passes of 25-plus yards in 290 attempts. Let me ask you this. How many times do you remember last year Tua missing on deep throws? Just flat out missing. I don't remember. I remember Jakeem Grant not letting one hit his helmet. And then here's the next. This is my favorite part. His offensive coordinator last year, Chan Gailey, said recently he was in total shock when Tagovailoa was given the job over Fitzpatrick during the bye week. Gailey ended up leaving the team after one season. Okay, let's start with the last part. Do we think Chad left the team, or do we think that Brian Flores made a decision that Chad should leave the team? What do you think? And the whole way this is framed is like Gailey couldn't coach Tua. Or didn't, right? Like he was given this horrible quarterback to work with. Maybe he just didn't want to adopt his system to the quarterback they drafted 5th overall. I have never seen more denial. And again, I like Chan too. I covered Chan. And Chan actually produced the last playoff season for the Dolphins way back in 2000 with Lamar Smith running for 209 yards. Lamar Smith no longer plays in the NFL. What exactly did Chan Gailey and Ryan Fitzpatrick expect? The guy was drafted 5th overall. It's a rebuilding team. Once the offensive line was capable enough, he was going to play. I've never seen two people who were like more in the dark about something that was clear to everybody else. The Dolphins were not going into the next decade with Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback. And frankly, with Chan Gailey as offensive coordinator. So this entire premise is based, I'm not going to say on a bunch of lies, but a bunch of misinterpretations of the situation that I feel at this point from the national media are intentional. And I'm trying to figure out why. Like, what is it about this guy that bothers people so much? So I threw this out on Twitter yesterday on 5 Reasons Sports. What bothers you so much? What bothers the national media? What is it that's causing this? Okay. So I was given a bunch of reasons. One reason is he's religious. I mean, there have been plenty of quarterbacks who've been religious. Now, Tebow tended to put it in people's faces in a way that some don't like, okay? But Kurt Warner's religious. There wasn't an anti-Kurt Warner agenda. Mark Brunell was religious. I don't think it's that. Then I was given the fact he's a former Alabama quarterback. I don't think it's that. I mean, people look at Alabama like they look at, I don't know, like they look at the Yankees, okay? Yeah, there are a lot of people that don't like Alabama. But I've never seen an Alabama quarterback get a bunch of hell beef. I mean, AJ McCarron. I'm sorry, I'm in my basketball mode. CJ McCollum. He's got a lot of bad takes too. AJ McCollum, McCarron. See what I'm doing? AJ McCarron gets hurt the other day against the Dolphins, right? He's a former Alabama quarterback. I've never seen any AJ McCarron hate. I mean, I think Brent Musburger liked his fiance or girlfriend or something like that. And that's a good point. Russell Wilson puts it in people's faces, not nearly as many people bother him. So the other one that was thrown out to me is it a race thing? I mean, a lot of people know that tends to be where I go. But I don't know that it is in this case. I really don't. Like, I don't really get it. And others are saying, is it a Miami thing? People don't like Miami. That goes back to the Big Three era. But Miami hasn't showboated about Tua the way it did about LeBron. So honestly, when I look at all of it, I don't understand it. But there is an agenda. They don't want him to succeed. Thank you. It's AJ McCarron. Appreciate that, Royal. They don't want him to succeed. And when he does succeed, they look for whatever it is that he may have failed on. And so at this point, he just has to continue to perform. And it's basically Miami against the world, like it usually is. All right, we're going to bring on CK here in a second to talk about this. Again, trying to get through this with my voice. I appreciate those of you who are sticking in with us. Before we get to CK, though, and our guest of the day here, I want to tell you about BetUS. This is our new betting sponsor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. With a sports betting season in full force, we got football, obviously the preseason games. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity like BetUS. So go to BetUS.com. Again, this is a pioneer in the sportsbook industry. They've got loads of bonuses there. Join now, again, at BetUS.com or go to 800-69-BET-US. You got to use the code 5, F-I-V-E. That's the code 5 at BetUS.com. You're going to find them on our 5 Reasons to Bet show as well. Again, during NBA season, NHL season, MLB season, of course, is still going, but make sure you get in there on the football and play those futures, okay? You can play the futures for the Dolphins. I think their number is 9.5 if you want to go over on the Dolphins. So go to betus.com. Again, use that code 5. All right, we're going to bring on our guy now from 3 yards per carry, CK Parrott. His voice is going to be in much better condition than mine is, I'm sure. Joining us from Tampa. How do I sound, CK? Great?
You sound like you gargled with battery acid.
I will tell you, it's better than 3 days ago. It is better. That's it. Look, that come on, real. That's not really true. All right, let's get to it because nobody really wants to hear from me anymore. And we'll get into an evaluation of the first 2 games, obviously. But why, in your view, are we seeing this? What is it about him that bothers people so much?
I think because there's a lot of different personalities at play, there's probably a lot of different reasons. But if I had to generalize it, I'd say that there's a thing in sports. It's the great schadenfreude of sports, where expectations and reality don't meet. We love that, right? We love to talk about that in sports when there are high expectations and there's high hype. And then the reality falls short of it. Think about how Ryan Leaf has been sewn into the fabric of NFL history. I mean, ultimately, he's just another failed player among a million failed players in the NFL, right? But no, it's different, right? Because coming out, some people, not even most people, some people hyped him more than Peyton Manning, and then Peyton Manning went on to have this career, and Ryan Leaf was a total failure. So I think that there's something in us. We want to see that. We want to see that more, that happen more. And you have this juxtaposition between Tua Tagovailoa and Justin Herbert going back to back. Justin Herbert had one of the best rookie seasons quarterback that, we've ever seen. And he is everything that Tua Tagovailoa is not. He's, the 6'5" body, beautiful cannon armed guy. And Tua Tagovailoa is, 6'0" and doesn't have a rocket arm necessarily. And, so I think there's a lot of that. There's a want to, about it, that we want, that people, especially national, non-Miami people, they want to see this. They really want to see this, the Flames. So I think that's probably, if I were to generalize it, that's probably it. And then there's also, you talk about Ben Volen, New England writer. It's pretty transparent, right?
But he wasn't always, Chris. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it feels personal at this point. I know Ben, so I don't really understand it, I guess.
I've had beers with Ben a couple of times. I mean, I know Ben. I know Ben pretty well. I think that he's. I think he likes, poking the ant pile a little bit. So I think that there's that to it. But yeah, I think that there's definitely some anti-Miami among individuals. But really, I think it's just we all love to see somebody go down in flames, and so they want. I mean, think about. But we can't claim to be special that way, because think about, like, how universally, for example, everybody hated the Josh Allen pick for the Buffalo Bills, right? I mean, when he was drafted, everybody was just immediately, 95% of people were like, this is just a total mistake. He's a terrible quarterback. And then his first 2 years in the league were like that as well. So how much did Buffalo Bills fans be like, oh, everybody hates Buffalo. Everybody hates the Buffalo Bills. Everybody hates our guy. I think we just, nationally, and not we as in Miami fans, we just love failure. We love seeing somebody fall, like, gloriously short. And Tua didn't really do that last year, but I guess relative to Justin Herbert, maybe he did.
But Chris, he doesn't hype himself up. Like, I get it with, like, LeBron. Okay. And I covered LeBron for 5 years every day. Okay. I get it with LeBron, because even though I knew LeBron in a different way than other people knew him, because again, I was interacting with him regularly, I understood the aura he put out and the bullseye he put on his own back. Okay. When you call yourself the chosen one at age 16 or 17, okay, that's okay. And you tattooed. I mean, that's kind of what you're doing. But this is different. I mean, this is Tua, he's confident, but he's humble. Like, he doesn't have those kind of airs. He credits his teammates. He takes responsibility. Like, this is not the typical athlete that people want to bring down. And that's what I don't really understand. I mean, even his story, he wasn't, he emerged, he comes in for Jalen Hurts. He makes that throw in a national championship game. He didn't anoint himself anything. He performed. And not only that, but the public typically likes comeback stories.
Yeah.
And he's an incredible comeback story. He's an incredible family story. He sits on the field, okay, after, his first game, and soaks it all in. Like, it's just, I just don't understand from that perspective, what it is. I want to focus on the football with you here a little bit, though, while I got you. Okay, so again, you can follow CK at CK Parrott, and at the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast. New episode is just, I guess, out overnight, so I'm going to check that out as well. And this comment comes, Tua didn't have to hype himself up. Everybody else did it for him. That's why I called it the cult of Tua. Fans and media set this up ahead of time. The thing about that is, and again, I want to get to the football, not in the way they did with Tebow, not in the way, I just feel like there are levels to cults. Okay. We see that in politics too.
Well,
like, there are levels to cults. I don't know if the Tua cult we sold a t-shirt, CK. That's all we did.
Man, come on.
That's all we did. We sold a t-shirt. We sold a lot of them. We got more on the site too, if you want them, but let's get to the football. Okay. The first game, I thought the biggest thing that jumped out to me as opposed to last year was the quickness of the ball getting out. But the second game, the thing that really jumped out to me, and I think to you and to others, is just the movement in the pocket. It feels like the Dolphins finally have a quarterback who knows when the rush is coming and where it's coming from, which I don't think they've had since maybe Pennington. Okay. And to have that is going to be necessary, because this offensive line is not going to give him a long time to sit back there.
Yeah, I think that one of the big differences that we're seeing in this year, what he's doing in the preseason as opposed to before, because he's always been like this. He's always been able to feel the rush. If you go back to Alabama and you look at what he does, I mean, he's one of those quarterbacks. He takes his job very seriously, and his job, a quarterback's job, is to move with the rush and to breathe within the pocket. he's doing that. He's doing it like he had before. And I think part of it was, particularly in this game, the offensive line actually sort of kept working at their blocks. Even though they were giving up penetration, and it was a dirty pocket, and you saw that over and over again. But they kept their hands engaged, they kept their feet moving, and they kept up with the blocks. And so even though the pocket gets a little bit collapsed in and he has to move around, he doesn't have guys actually grabbing him and dragging him to the dirt and he can operate that way. If you give him that, it doesn't have to be a good offensive line. It really doesn't. If you give him that, if you coach them well enough that they stay engaged and they keep their hands and their feet working, then he can do this. And this is one of the reasons that they drafted him so high. He has that natural feel for it. So we're seeing that in this game, and overall in the preseason, I think what we're seeing is we haven't gotten to have high standards with our quarterbacks. Unfortunately.
Yeah. I covered Ray Lucas, Chris.
Yeah.
And Tyler Thigpen and Joey Harrington and Dante Culpepper and AJ Feely and David Heward, and I'd stop me at any time. Go ahead.
Let's not forget Cleo Lemon and
John Beck,
Gus Farrat. Yeah. So we haven't gotten to have high standards with our quarterbacks in a while, but if you go and you watch all these other quarterbacks in the preseason, what you notice is this isn't like they're showing that this is not the level of football at which it's challenging, right? Like some of these quarterbacks out there, these franchise guys, they're operating in the preseason. They have like these ridiculous accuracy or completion percentages. They just operate like they're out there in practice or something like that. It just looks kind of easy. What we're seeing in 2 games, and it's really kind of mind blowing to think about how long it's been that we haven't seen that, but what we're seeing in 2 games is Tua is a little bit like that. Like every pass is on target. Just about every pass is on target. He's making quick decisions and correct decisions like pretty easily, with the exception of one decision against Chicago, which laid over the middle in the end zone. So he's making it kind of look easy because preseason should be a little bit easy for guys at that level. It's encouraging because we need a guy at that level, and we haven't had one in a long time. So I like it.
All right, I'm going to get to more with you here in a second because I want to get into the expectation game, which is always interesting here, particularly because I do think people down here have different expectations than they might everywhere else. But I also want to tell you about our fantasy partner, which is also a fantasy partner of the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, which is Underdog Fantasy. Here's the cool thing about Underdog Fantasy. If you just go to 5RSN, you can set it and forget it. Okay, basically, you pick your team once, and that's it. You pick it for the entire year. Basically, if you use the code 5RSN, you get $25 in bonus cash. Again, you could join a league. You could draft a team. That's all you got to do. You go to underdogfantasy.com. They'll give you $25 when you sign up, and you can take a free shot at a $1 million grand prize in their fantasy football tournament. So that's all you do. Underdog, you just draft. No reason to worry about waivers, lineups, injuries, anything else like that. Underdog is going to handle it for you. So go to underdogfantasy.com. All of us here at the 5 Reasons Sports Network are going to join a league here ourselves over 3 Yards Per Carry, myself, Alex Dono, etc. So go to underdogfantasy.com. Get yourself that $25 bonus. Sign up using the code 5. That's the number 5, RSN. All right, CK, let's get to the expectation game here. I thought one of the more I read this one out. One of the more sort of annoying comments in the Ben Volen piece, which I just read in the Boston Globe, was that this is a make or break year for Tua, even in just his second year. I'm just trying to figure out what other quarterback around the league has been given that level of expectation, particularly under the circumstances. I mean, do you really believe that Brian Flores would move on completely? I'm not saying maybe get competition, although the Dolphins didn't get competition for Ryan Tannehill for 7 years. I mean, they intentionally had a backup that they knew would not be competition just so that they wouldn't ruffle Ryan's feathers. I'm not saying they don't get any competition next year if it doesn't go well, but do you see any circumstance where they just move on?
There's really only one, and right now that's so up in the air that, and it's like a nuclear issue that nobody.
Watson,
and that's
okay.
it. And it's the obvious one, just because rumors persist that he is strongly onto Miami specifically, and he has the no trade clause, so he can exert control there. And so we are going to have to, unfortunately, keep paying attention to that one. But that's really the only possibility. Like, otherwise, make or break is, first off, every year in the NFL for every player is virtually a make or break season. It's just the way the league is right now. The Dolphins kind of operate that way, even more so than a lot of other teams, because they focus on like the 1-year contracts and the year to year decision making with their players. But I mean, if he shows progress and Deshaun Watson is not a possibility, then no, he's not being replaced by the next year. I mean, I think that's a little bit silly. But if he, let's say he takes another catastrophic injury, I mean, that's always out there. Then you could start to see a push to move on somewhere. If he completely, it's even just hard to. That's what's odd about this guy. Like, it's about his character, and it's about what him capable of. Like, can you imagine him falling flat on his face this year?
No.
You just. It's just not who he is as a player, who he is as a character. So the surrounding cast has gotten so much better. So it's really hard to imagine that. So I think that what we could be looking at is, yes, he takes a step forward. You have a surrounding cast that's a lot better, so the results get better. And everybody's saying, oh yeah, Tua took this major step forward. And I think he's going to make progress the way that guys do. But make or break. No, the only reason it would be make or break is because you can get a top 5 quarterback out there, potentially free of his legal issues and, moral injuries abound. But yeah, that's the only reason.
Yeah, and the funny thing about this to me too is you look at the team that Ben's covering up there in New England. Again, as I mentioned earlier, with a quarterback who can't even get on a plane because he won't vaccinate, it would seem to me that there would be bigger concerns up there about that. And also this new thing, which I saw this week, which is that all Tua did was throw a bunch of short passes and people ran with them. First thing, that the pass to Gesicki was not that. Yeah. And second thing, isn't that pretty much what Tom Brady did to win a Super Bowl for his first year as a starter? Okay, to put Vinatieri in position.
And a lot of years.
And a lot of years after, until they got Randy Moss, right? Yeah. I mean, that's pretty much the offense that they ran, and this is the offense they ran a lot of other times. Well, CK, we appreciate it. You can follow him at CK Parrott and 3 yards per carry. Thanks to our sponsors on day one, Ubreak, Wheel Fix, Underdog Fantasy. Use the code 5RSN. Also, of course, BetUS. Use the code 5 again to get those bonuses. I'll be back on 5 on the floor tonight, I think. Thank you to Throat Lozenges and all that good stuff. And yes, tomorrow we'll talk a little NBA. I'm going to be here every Tuesday and Wednesday. I'll have Vinny Goodwill on tomorrow with me. Thanks to Manny Chang for producing. Thanks to everybody for joining.